Regression is not just a more advanced version of correlation. It is the analytic expression of a predictive quantitative design. A study turns toward regression when the research problem and the literature gap show that the field needs to estimate an outcome, not simply observe whether two variables move together. Regression is chosen when the missing knowledge centers on prediction, how well one or more variables can be used to estimate a specific result. Regression is designed to predict the value of an outcome based on one or more predictor variables. Unlike correlation, regression is asymmetric. One variable is clearly positioned as the outcome being estimated, and the other variables are positioned as predictors used to generate that estimate. This distinction is not statistical convenience. It is a conceptual decision grounded in theory, prior research, and the logic of the research problem. The analysis reflects that decision. For a research question to align with regression, it must include the word predict. That word must appear in the question itself. Other verbs such as examine, explore, or assess do not commit the study to a predictive design, and are therefore misaligned with regression. When the word predict is used, the study has moved beyond asking whether variables are related, and into asking how well one variable can be estimated from others. Once that shift happens, correlation is no longer appropriate. Prediction in regression does not require data collected across time. Regression can be used with cross-sectional data to estimate outcomes within the sample, as long as the conceptual logic of prediction is sound. Prediction in this context refers to statistical estimation, not forecasting future events. Regression estimates expected outcomes based on patterns in the data, rather than predicting specific individual futures. Regression requires the researcher to define variable roles clearly. The outcome variable is the variable being predicted. Predictor variables are the variables used to estimate that outcome. This asymmetry is one of the defining features of regression. The decision about which variable is the outcome is made conceptually, not statistically. It should be justified based on the literature, the problem, and the purpose of the study, not on which variable happens to produce stronger results. The type of regression used depends on the form of the outcome variable. When the outcome is numeric and continuous, linear regression is used. When the outcome is categorical, most often a yes or no outcome, logistic regression is used. Predictors may be continuous or categorical in either case, as long as they are meaningfully measured and theoretically justified. Composite scale scores created from validated instruments are appropriate predictors or outcomes when constructed correctly. Regression models may include one predictor or multiple predictors. Simple regression uses a single predictor to estimate an outcome. Multiple regression uses two or more predictors to estimate the same outcome. In both cases, the logic is the same. The model estimates the expected value of the outcome given the predictor values. Some predictors in a regression model are central to the research question, while others are included to improve accuracy or reduce bias. These additional variables are often called covariates. A covariate is a variable that is not the main focus of the study, but is included to account for background differences or competing influences. Including covariates helps ensure that the prediction reflects the contribution of the primary predictors rather than being distorted by outside factors. Regression is chosen to predict outcomes, and as part of that predictive model, it also reports how much of the outcome's variation is accounted for by the predictors. This is often described as the percentage of variance explained. This information helps evaluate how useful the prediction is, but it does not change the intent of the study. Reporting variance explained does not mean the study is explaining why the outcome occurs. It describes how well the model performs, not the cause of the phenomenon. Regression relies on several assumptions that matter conceptually. One of the most important is independence. Independence means that each participant contributes their own data, and that one person's data are not influenced by another person's data. For example, if all students in a sample are nested in the same classroom and strongly influence one another, independence may be violated because the data points are not truly separate. Sampling across other classrooms will improve the design and minimize Independence matters because regression assumes each data point provides unique information. Another key assumption is linearity between the predictors and the outcome. This means that changes in the predictor are associated with reasonably consistent changes in the outcome. If the relationship bends, plateaus, or changes direction, regression may not accurately represent it. Regression is designed to model straight-line relationships, not complex or curved ones. Regression also assumes that predictors are not so closely related to one another that they become redundant. When predictors overlap heavily, the model struggles to determine which predictor is contributing what. This does not mean predictors can never be related, but they must each contribute distinct information to the prediction. When regression assumptions are violated, the study is not automatically invalid. Instead, assumption violations change how confidently predictions can be interpreted. Violations may weaken predictive accuracy, inflate or suppress estimates, or make results sensitive to small changes in the data. These situations require careful judgment, transparent reporting, and restrained interpretation rather than technical fixes or overclaiming. Consider an example of linear regression. A study asks, to what extent does attendance predict final course grade? Attendance is measured as a numeric percentage, and course grade is measured as a numeric score. The question uses the word predict and clearly identifies an outcome. Because of this alignment, regression is the appropriate analysis. The results may show that attendance predicts course grade, and that a certain percentage of the variation in grades is accounted for by attendance, but the study cannot claim that attendance causes higher grades. Now consider an example of logistic regression. A study asks, to what extent does student engagement predict course completion status? Engagement is measured using a scale score, and course completion is a categorical outcome such as completed or not completed. Because the outcome is categorical and the question asks about prediction, logistic regression is the correct choice. The analysis estimates how changes in engagement relate to the likelihood of course completion, not why students complete courses. Regression is not appropriate when the research question is about simple relationship without prediction, group differences, or descriptive patterns. It should not be used when the study does not clearly identify an outcome, or when causal claims are being made without experimental control. Regression predicts outcomes. It does not establish cause. Regression results can be compelling, which makes ethical interpretation especially important. Predictive strength and variance explained do not justify causal language or policy claims without additional evidence. Responsible use of regression requires restraint, clarity, and alignment between what the analysis can show and what the study claims. When regression is chosen, that choice should be visible throughout the study. The research problem should point to prediction. The literature gap should justify the need to estimate an outcome. The purpose statement should name regression clearly, and the research question should include the word predict. When those elements align, regression becomes a coherent and defensible choice rather than a post hoc analytic decision. Regression is a powerful tool when used for the purpose it was designed to serve. It allows researchers to estimate outcomes, evaluate predictive strength, and understand how variables function together in a model. When used with alignment and care, regression advances knowledge without overstepping its limits.